Hello everybody, I'm Den Haring and welcome back to my channel, Fish Den 365. Today we're going to switch things up a little bit and I'd like to tell you a story. It seems appropriate, it happened, it's a true story, it took place years ago, nearly 30 years ago, and so I figured today is Friday the 13th, so it's a perfect time to tell this story. And I swear that what I'm going to tell you actually did happen. I have witnesses that I'm actually hoping are watching this video and can chime in, but that may be a long shot, being that it was like nearly 30 years ago. So we're at that time of the year now where the bass are spawning, and I usually start to shift gear towards fishing stripers and hybrid stripers, and that's what I'm doing here in the boathouse, just getting some baits ready for that time of year and switching things over, and soon I'll be out there fishing the night bite for stripers and getting out to some other venues as well during the day. But this story goes back to 1993, and this was before I got my first boat, my first real boat. And because I had a canoe, like my dad and I had a canoe and I had a raft and we fished out of that, but this was a 16-footer that I got later that year. But the month was either late May or early June. I'm not quite sure exactly anymore. It was the end of May or early June. And I was at that time fishing Nakamixin quite a bit. And I didn't know this, I found this out right around this same time. In fact, probably just a few days before I had gone down there and I was beginning to hear stories about the stripers. We already knew the walleye bite there was really, really good back then, and people were catching a ton of walleyes at night. But we started hearing about the hybrid stripers and how many there were and how good that fishing was. So one evening I went down to fish from the bank, and it was where Mink Road comes down, where the dam is. I know a lot of you guys know right where that is. And there's a parking lot up there, and you can just walk down the hill and go right down to this cement pylon in the water there. And that was a pretty good spot back then. The fish would come in there. And I got there probably an hour before dark and started throwing a Rebel jointed minnow, like the one I had on Topwater Tuesday a few weeks back. And I got bit on that, and my rod went straight down. I mean, this fish hit and it just took off. This is how, stripers and hybrids react usually when they're first hooked. They have that initial lunge, and this thing just lunged, and I wasn't used to that, and my drag was set too tight and it just pulled loose. And so I was there for a little while, and I thought, well, I'll keep fishing. I was disappointed that I lost the fish, and I stayed until I was tired because it was a work night. It was a Friday night, and I thought, well, I'll stay till 10 o'clock. And right around 10 o'clock, a couple of guys came down. Over that time period back then, I got to know them. I don't remember their last names, but I know their first name. It was Ed and Troy. These were two guys that would come down, and they were fishing this hybrid striper bite. And they asked how I was doing, and I told them what happened. And they both looked at me and said, you may want to stay a little later because it sometimes gets good then. And I'm like, So I stayed till 11, and Troy got a walleye, and that particular night it wasn't so good, but I remembered what they said, and it started to come down even Saturday night, the next night later, and it was unbelievable. By 11 o'clock, between 11 at night and 2 in the morning, the amount of hybrid stripers that were up eating the bait fish was just crazy, just blow-ups everywhere. And I got nearly, close to being addicted to fishing for that in May and June for a number of years. It was just so much. It wasn't easy to catch those fish, even though they were doing that. But when you had the right bait or when you were there at the right time, it was a whole lot of fun because you catch them, and stripers fight hard, and it was just a good time. But anyway, so the story, so these guys, that was like a Friday night. Saturday night, they were there every night too. And there was another guy, a tall guy named Jeff, that would come down. So usually it was me, and my brother would come down sometimes. Lisa, who I later married, she would come down with me now and then. But this one night I was down there on my own, and Ed and Troy were there, and this guy Jeff was there. So these are the witnesses that saw what I'm about to describe. So if you guys, I've lost contact with you all, but if you guys are watching this video and you remember what I'm about to describe, chime in, because to this day, I still think about it. So we're out there fishing. And I was at my spot there on Mink Road down at the dam, and we were talking back and forth and throwing our lures out there and just trying to fish and catch some. And all of a sudden we heard this rustling in the woods to my right. And so this was closer to the dam. It was coming from the dam side of me. And clearly you could hear something walking through the woods, and it sounded like it was a large animal or a person. Well, it turned out to be a person. He came out of the woods, and we could see him from a distance away. He had a spear, and he had long hair and a beard. He was tall. He was a pretty big guy. He had one of these flannel shirts on, a red flannel shirt, and it was like dirty, and his jeans were worn and tattered, and he didn't have a light. He just kept walking towards us, and so Jeff was the closest to him at the time. I think Jeff was like, I don't know, he was trying to go to another spot, I think. And this guy just is walking like right at this guy, and Jeff, if I remember right, he says hello to him or hi, and the guy says nothing. And it was almost like if Jeff wouldn't have moved, the guy just would have walked right into him. So Jeff just kind of got out of the way, and the guy just kept coming. And then he goes right behind me and this Ed and Troy, and just continues through the woods on the left side of us with his spear. And he didn't have a light, no flashlight. He wasn't walking on any trail or paths. He was walking in the woods, not too far from the water. And, and we're like all looking at each other like, what just happened? It was like this. It was like he's from another time zone or something. It's just so strange. It was like he never even saw us. He didn't acknowledge any of us, and he just kept walking through the woods, and we can hear him going through the woods. And he never came back that night. And we walked up to the parking lot, and there were no other cars there except ours. So he didn't park there. We don't know where he came from or where he went. And we thought maybe he was gigging frogs or something with the spear, but it was the strangest thing. And to this day, I still wonder what the hell really happened. Who was that guy? And it was strange. So that really happened, and it was back in May or June of 1993 at the lake, and I still don't really know what to make of it. It's just very, very strange. I do remember coming down the next night, and Jeff came down again, and I think I was there first, and he came down and he had this giant, very large machete on him, and he had it like hung off of his belt or something, and this thing was. It was a long machete and a wide blade. And I'm like, Jeff, what are you doing with that machete? He goes, after last night, I'm not taking any chances. So I don't know if he went, I lost track of those guys shortly after, because when I got my boat, I started fishing out of that. And I presume they were still shore fishing. But I don't know if he always took that down to the lake with him or not. But if you guys are out there and you're hearing this, I would love for you to chime in, because... and just to see what you remember about it too. But that's what I remember, and it was a very strange, kind of a freaky, a little bit scary night. It was one of those dark, humid, foggy type of nights, and this guy comes walking through there like that, and it was just different. It was just very, very... I don't have another experience that even compares to that. So that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. A little bit of a different change up for Fish Den 365 today. If you like the video, give me the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow the channel, so I'd appreciate it if you share this with your friends. And I really appreciate everybody watching, and really like the comments going back and forth, having the community of fishermen learning and sharing with each other. So love to continue that. And we'll have another video coming out for Topwater Tuesday in a few days. And until then, may God bless your fishing endeavors.